Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we usually go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. However, today we have a special bonus episode where we're looking at Netflix's 2025 superhero film called The Old Guard. This one is directed by Victoria Mahoney and stars Charlize Theron, KiKi Layne, Marwan Kenzari, Luca Marinelli, Matthias Schoenaerts, Veronica Ngo, Chiwetel Eljofor, Thurman and Henry Golding. I'm Jesse, I'm your host. Thank you for joining me here today for this special bonus episode where we're looking at a sequel to a Netflix original film, so The Old Guard, and this is obviously the second one because it's called The Old Guard 2. As always, if you haven't seen the first film or this film yet, has only been out for under 24 hours, give us a pause and come back a little bit later on because we will spoil the film as we go throughout this show, and we do like to start our show with the Fast Flicks where we do a quick little summary of what the film is all about. So this one, it's about a group of immortals who are continuing to try and keep the world safe, but are challenged by other immortals. Oh, wow. I've really struggled to put together any thoughts on this film, but let's have a chat about how this one ended up on Netflix, how a sequel got greenlit, how it ended up on the streaming service, and what it's called around the world. So if we go to the translation for The Old Guard 2 in Chinese, it's called Eternal Guard 2. That makes sense. In Czech, it's called Old Guard, Immortals 2. Cool. In Hungarian and Russian, it's called The Immortal Guard 2. So not too many differing titles for this film. The working title of this film was The Old Guard Chapter 2, Force Multiplied. Excellent. And the tagline for this film is Eternity Has a Price. And these all come from, I guess, what it's adapted from. This is based on the comic book called The Old Guard, and it serves obviously as a sequel to the first film and also a Netflix original film. We did do a episode, we did have managed to cover The Old Guard in our chronological order a couple of years ago now. The original film is 5 years old though, almost to the date, so the sequels come out 5 years later, which is a big gap, I guess, in between films and sequels. We do go to July of 2020, so this is just after the first film came out, where Greg Rucka, who's the author of the comic book that it's based on, and he's also written these films, he said, in the case of a sequel, break glass, it's very straightforward. You want another one? Here's a way to get into it. And this was, I think, in relation to him saying, we need the numbers, we need people to watch it. So then in that same month as well, Charlize Theron expressed interest in doing a second film, and I think she's worked as executive producer on these films as well, and she said that let's have a little resting period, but just given the fact that all of us really want to do it, I'm sure when it's the right time, we'll start the conversation. So she was obviously early and eager to get on board to do a sequel for this film too. It was reported on January the 21st of 2021 that the Netflix had greenlit a sequel, and on August of 26th of 2021, it was announced that Victoria Mahoney would replace Gina Prince Bythewood as the director for the sequel, with Theron, KiKi Layne, Marwan Kenzari, Luca Marinelli, Matthias Schoenaerts, Veronica Ngo, and Chiwetel Eljofor also cast to reprise their roles. And then it was in June of 2022 where Thurman and Henry Golding were cast in undisclosed roles. So two of the new characters in this film and in this franchise. Principal photography for the film began in June of 2022 in Italy, while some filming took place at the Italian Cincinetta studios. We go to August of 2022, where, unfortunately, the film's set caught fire while it was being dismantled, which caused some further delays to the production. Additional filming took place in the United Kingdom, and filming was completed in September of 2022. We go then to July of 2024, so almost 2 years after they'd filmed the feature. Theron said that the film was shut down 5 weeks into its post-production phase due to regime changes at Netflix. But she then said, this is in July of 2024, that the film had been completed and would be released soon. We then go to August of 2024, where the Union of British Columbia Performers listed the film as being scheduled for 2 weeks of additional photography from October 7 to October 18 of 2024. So obviously they got back into editing and realized, hey, we need to do some reshoots, and that's why some reshoots were done in the back end of 2024. A clip for the film did premiere at the IGN Fan Fest in June of 2025, the 7th of June, and that's how it ended up on Netflix from the 2nd of July 2025. This is heading into that spoiler territory, so make sure that if you haven't seen it yet, give us a pause, but this film, the sequel, it does end on a huge cliffhanger. It's almost like the movie doesn't have a proper ending, and as of yet, there has been no third film announced. In a recent interview with Screen Rant, director Victoria Mahoney defended her decision to end on such a cliffhanger. She said she cares about what's occurring with the characters in any given moment. She continued, "That's all I'm chasing when I'm making the film. That it happens to be a cliffhanger, that it involves some stuff that may make people happy and some people pissed off, that's not my circus. I'm just trying to do it honestly and earnestly. I stand behind it." So obviously a little bit upset with some of the criticism from the film. On the day of release on Netflix did put out on YouTube a short recap of the first film, hosted by Charlize Theron, KiKi Layne, and Uma Thurman. I watched it. It's cheaply and quickly put together because my guess is Netflix realized, hey, no one probably remembers the first film 5 years later on. I will put the link for it in the show notes. I highly recommend watching it. If it's been a while since you watched the first film, and I'll probably talk about that a little bit more. So yes, this did hit Netflix on the 2nd of July, 2025. Filmed in Italy, the UK, Canada. What are the critics and audiences saying about this film? I'm obviously recording this pretty early after release, so there's not a lot of ratings. But on Rotten Tomatoes, currently, it sits at 30%. That's on 30 reviews, so that is rotten from the critics. The audience has it a little bit higher. That's on 41%. That's on more than 100 ratings, so still not the best. There's nothing on IMDb as a consensus yet. Letterboxd, it sits at a 2.6 out of 5 on 3,700 ratings, and it's been logged by a bit over 4,500 people. And on Metacritic, that traffic light system of red, yellow, and green sits in yellow for both critics and audiences. The critics have it at 46 out of 100 on 18 reviews, and the audience are 5.4 out of 10 on 7 reviews. So in that middle ground. What are my early thoughts? I probably need to start off with, I think to start with, I was completely thrown because I think I was sort of expecting some sort of recap at the start of the film. And I guess it almost took me the first act of the film to vaguely remember who everyone was and where they were from and their connections and all that sort of stuff. But I think if you like the first one, I can't see why you wouldn't like this one. It's the same characters, it's the same sort of, it's exactly the same genre, obviously, and the same, the story continues. So the arc is evident in this film. Let's talk about the characters. And this is probably some of the frustrations with this film. The characters aren't really developed from what they were in the first, and I guess that's not necessarily a negative thing, but Andy, Charlize Theron's character, she's our main character, and obviously has this inner struggle to keep fighting for humanity. And in the first film, she started off as this immortal. By now, in this second film, she starts the film as mortal, but by the end of the film becomes immortal again. So chopping and changing the whole way through. I hope you got your head wrapped around that. Quinn, who is her partner in crime, she was the person in the first film. They were thrown together into the ocean. They were convicted as being witches in the early centuries, and she didn't escape. Quinn got stuck, and finally Quinn's arrived, and she's come back, and she's like this lost love of her life. But there's obviously some issues there about neglect and abandonment and breaking promises too. The other characters in Andy's crew, I guess, of the old guard, we've got Niall. Niall was the new member from the last film. She joined the Immortals then, and she sort of faces, these characters don't have much in this film, but she faces off with the villain of this film called Discord, and this Discord character wants her on her side because tells Niall that, you're the last immortal and you don't know yourself properly yet. I guess maybe we'll find out in the third film. The other characters, Joe and Nikki, the first film, they were like full in love. They were like this couple that it was fun to see them banter and see their connection. This one, I think they literally rubbed their heads against each other once and held hands once, and that was about it. There are some trust issues in the film with Joe secretly going to see Booker, and we'll talk about Booker in a second, and not telling Nikki, so that causes some frustration. But apart from that, they're sort of in the background, and Booker does get a little bit of a time to shine in this film. In the first film, he betrayed Andy and was exiled by the team, I think, for like 100 years, and that was in the first film. So when he comes back on board in this film, there's always that lingering question from the guard as well as the audience about whether he's going to turn again, and I guess that's a pretty obvious redemption plot that he can put himself through for some self-sacrifice in this film too. Quinn's the character that's released from the casket in the ocean that her and Andy were trapped in. She's angry, she's ready to fight, she feels betrayed that Andy had promised her that they would be together forever. And Andy's lived 500 years on land without her. That's 5 centuries. That's 500 years. Don't worry if you forget how many years it was. You'll hear it in the film many times, so you won't forget. Copley is Chiwetel Eljofor. This is the intelligent agent who sort of turned in the first film. He's working with the crew. He provides them with the intel and technology from the agency that he works for. I think it's meant to be like the CIA, so that they can fight evil too. Discord by Uma Thurman. This is the villain of the piece. A little bit sad. Like, it's almost like a cameo. She's not in it that much. Almost shrouded in mystery, but revealed as one of the oldest immortals and has been lonely for a long time. She doesn't like humanity. So there you go. There's the opposite of Andy, and that's where they're going to sort of counteract with each other, heading into maybe the third film. Finally, Tour. Tour's a new character too. This is Henry Golding, old friend of Andy that's revealed, and the whole crew are not happy that Andy didn't tell them that they had another friend. Almost used as a narrative plot, like mythical character to tell backstory or the history of the crew. So that's all he's really there for too. The director, Victoria Mahoney, 25 directing credits. The debut film from her was called Yelling to the Sky in 2011, but has directed a lot of TV, recognisable TV too, like Suits, the LA spin-off, Grey's Anatomy, The Morning Show for Apple TV+, as well as that Netflix original TV show that a lot of people like called You. Also was the second unit assistant director on Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, so making a bit of a resume for herself. Let's talk about some scenes. What are some scenes that stood out? What didn't I like in this film? I think the first scene, I honestly thought I'd put Pirates of the Caribbean on. It was like out at sea, this boat in choppy water. They're pulling this box out that looked like that octopus dude from Pirates of the Caribbean. I was almost like, do I need to pause and check I'm watching the right thing? That just made me laugh. Other than that, there's a scene where Andy's in Rome and she goes to meet Quinn. It's this meeting place that they'd set centuries ago. And visually, it was like Andy was stepping back in time to ancient Rome. It was really well done visually. And then Andy and Quinn, they communicate for the first time, and there's some really cool camera work focusing on their eyes and the tears, and then this really well choreographed fight between them. I really like that too. And then I guess I think there's another really good sequence at this nuclear plant in Indonesia towards the end of the film. There's a lot of good hand-on-hand combat there too. What are some things that didn't work? I think the opening action fight sequence, there's these fights, there's bullets, there's hand-to-hand combat, there's a car chase, there's a boat. It all looked really good, but really it had nothing to do with the movie. It literally just set up this false lead, and that was all it was for, just to show this is an action film. So that felt a bit off. The worst thing is, this is probably one of the worst lines of dialogue, but the worst thing that Andy could think about being mortal was having a hangover. Like, come on. There's a moment where Andy tells her crew, have some fun. I'm going off and she drops them off in Paris. And she's like, but I'm taking Copley with me to help me out. And then the next shot, she's in Seoul in South Korea. I didn't realize they could teleport. It felt weird. And then they're in the bustling streets of Seoul. And then she's like, cool, Copley, wait here. And she opens this gate, and then she's in like this dense forest-like location straight off the main bustling street. It just felt so weird. Discord the villain. There's a moment where she's in a church and talking to Niall, and talks about that there's this photo of Jesus Christ being crucified, and she's like, talks about that she was there at the death of Jesus. Come on, don't need it. At the end, Andy walks in on this bleeding Quinn, and Quinn's got her hand on the trigger to the bomb and says, is this where you tell me this isn't who I am? And I was like, thank goodness that we had this random flashback earlier in the film where the same line was said to Andy from Quinn. Like, come on, it was just poor storytelling. And finally, this is the whole battle you wait the whole movie for. Andy versus Discord. You want to see Uma Thurman bringing back some Kill Bill vibes, going up, just literally going head to toe with Charlize Theron and being like, this is going to be a great fight. And I feel like if it was just a hand-to-hand battle between the two, it would have been all right. But it turns into this rubbish CGI fight because they're using helicopters and jumping from them. The helicopters are swirling around. Just wasn't a good finish, unfortunately. Themes, ideas. What's the film trying to say? Very similar to the first film, obviously, that idea of immortality, what it means, nothing lives forever, how do you protect humanity, what does it mean to be human, what are the feelings, what are the emotions, what's it like counting down to your death, knowing that the end is coming near as well. And obviously, too, in this one, the idea of betrayal and the feelings and anger that betrayal can create. And also, the other hand, too, I guess, the guilt that can be felt by the doer or the person that is doing the betraying. What did I take away from this film? I think I've probably touched on this already, but I probably should have watched the first film again before watching this. And I'm going to say that's probably the most important thing. If you haven't watched this sequel yet, watch that recap that I mentioned before. That'll be in the show notes, or watch the first film again, just so you can settle straight into the film, because it literally just jumps straight into it. Yeah, and I know it's a sequel, so I probably should have expected that anyway. Some questions, some pondering, some thoughts, some ideas. The only thing that I've sort of got to think about is the idea of Discord. Like, she's this big villain, and like I said, it's almost a cameo from Uma Thurman. But what is Discord's plan for humanity? It's like she hates them. She wants to get rid of the immortals as well. Like, what's the idea? Like, does she want to wipe humanity off the face of Earth? Is that her big plan? Is that what's gonna? I haven't read the comic book, so I don't know. But is that where she's leading towards? Because that's sort of the idea that I got. But other than that, I'm ready to wrap this one up. On this show, we do give the film a rating out of 5 stars. I think I'm going to change my rating from what I originally thought I was going to do as I've discussed this. But I mean, there's been a lot of negativity about the lack of character progression in this film. And yes, the first film did this so well. So really, they probably didn't need to do it for this one, especially without the recap. It's like you just need to watch these back to back, and that would make sense. So I didn't hate this film. There's some good hand-to-hand combat scenes. I think it's probably just disappointing to get to the end of a film where there's no resolution. I didn't really say exactly what happened, but after this big battle, the whole crew are kidnapped by the villain and they're taken off, and that's it. And now it's just Quinn and Andy there to go and save them, and that's it. That's the end of the film. So, yeah, random. Anyway, I'm giving this a 2.5 out of 5. We are on socials. We have Facebook. We have X, formerly known as Twitter, as well as Instagram. So give us a follow. Give us a like if you can. The question for this episode, are they going to make a third one? Is this going to be big enough for Netflix to invest in a third film? I'm not hopeful. I want to see the end. If they're going to say, cool, we're going to make one last film and tie it all up, that would be fantastic. Then it might be a really good trilogy that you can watch together, because the first one was so well received. So this could be that middle chapter, that the Attack of the Clones of Star Wars 1 to 3 or something like that. I'm intrigued. I really want to see the end of this story. And obviously, you know that Andy's going to be able to save them. So how? What happens? Who dies? Someone's going to die on the way. What's going to happen? I want to know. Come on, Netflix. Let's get some numbers up. Watch this film. Other than that, we have our regular episode on a Monday. We do have a back catalogue of over 450 episodes covering Netflix original films. I think there's over 1,000 or 1,100 Netflix original films. We haven't even done half. So get out there, have a listen to some of our episodes if you can. Other than that, thanks for joining me, and I will see you next week.